All right, so we've got a little bit more. All right, so we got a little bit more information sprinkling out of AMD's camp regarding its Don't Forget About Us Radeon division. I know that already triggered a lot of people. I have to just at the start get it out of my system. There's gonna be more, I promise, unfortunately. No, so AMD showed its cooler and stuff, and I'm disappointed they didn't show more. I'm disappointed the way they went about having you take a look at it. We've got some theories about why they did it that way, but we're gonna leave all that stuff sort of on the simmer burner, and we'll let it cook for a little bit in this video, but we're gonna talk more about the cooler design, just some things to look forward to, maybe some of our thoughts about it. And for those of you that are like, oh my God, he's making a video about a cooler, how stupid. We did it for NVIDIA as well, so what's fair is fair. So like I said, we covered the rumors and stuff about the NVIDIA cooler, about its weird new design with the pull fan and the blower fan and all that, when it was still rumored. But at least this is actual concrete information from AMD's camp. This is the Radeon 7. Pretty boring, right? When it first came out, at least, it was the first triple fan, non-blower type card that AMD had come out with that was for like the gamers. Now, although this card is a pretty big powerhouse when it comes to like compute and professional functions and things other than gaming, gaming is quite honestly where these companies make the majority of their money when it comes to the sales of an architecture and a GPU. Moving on though, I'm only showing this cooler and stuff so you can see kind of how far the design has come. So it's just a basic aluminum shroud that's square with 3 fans on top of a heatsink array. So if we take a look at the actual picture that and I hope I don't knock this over at some point. So if we take a look at the actual picture that they teased right here, their fans are obviously a 3-fan array. They downfire, so they pull air in through the fans and then they come out the sides right here through these heatsink vents, and they're gonna come out both sides. It's got 2 8-pin power plugs. We got this red ring around it. We've got this silver kind of an accent piece in the middle. I can't tell if the edge of the card, if that's polished. It kind of looks like it is on the face of the blade right here. The problem is this is a render. If you notice too, this is just a cooler. This is not actually even a card. There's no card on it. It's just the cooler design, which is like why I said it's just a crumb of information, because this just tells you what it's gonna look like. And if I had $1 for every time somebody said, who the hell cares what the cooler looks like? All I care about is the performance. Well, I wouldn't have that many dollars though, to be honest. That person that thinks that way truly is the minority when it comes to most purchases or purchasers, consumers, and what they look for in graphics card. Especially if you have a window on your case and you got to look at it, you want it to be something nice that you're going to look at. And I think most people who build a high-end computer that'd be shopping in this price point definitely care about aesthetics. And it's not wrong to care about aesthetics either. So that's obviously why we're talking about it. But you're fortunate if you think that way, because I could see how that would be very liberating and free to just buy whatever card you want, regardless of what it looks like, either be price or performance based, and just you win, because you're like, I don't care what it looks like. It could literally look like a masonry brick and I'd be fine with it. And you know what? I envy that. But anyway, moving forward, you can see it's got dual 8-pins, so it's nice to see there's no sort of a proprietary plug. And obviously the reason why NVIDIA had to go with the proprietary plug with the 12-pin deal on their FE card is because of where the plug is placed and the direction that it's placed. You're not gonna fit 2 8-pins there. But it's nice to see nobody has to worry about getting adapters or using ugly extensions or having to worry about getting new modular cables for your power supply. You're just gonna be using your standard 8-pin PCI Express, which is definitely praised. We've got our Radeon logo right here. I'm assuming that glows. And then there's not a whole lot else you can see by looking at this photo. It does look like the fin stack array goes literally from end to end on the card. So it starts here, and this is the side where your ports are gonna be. This is where your display port and HDMI and all that's gonna be. Rumor has it there's a USB-C plug on here, and that was something NVIDIA did in the 20 series cards because they were kind of banking on the HMDs using USB-C for its connectivity. Virtual Link. HMD is your virtual headset, by the way, if you're doing virtual reality. That didn't really take off because the problem is the manufacturers couldn't agree on a spec and nobody could universally use the same thing. So it's actually been removed from the new graphics cards from NVIDIA. But moving on here, if we take a look, there's not a whole lot to go by. Now AMD was like, hey, if you want to take a look at our card, go to our website and check out this really nice 3D model that we made where you can click it and move it around and all that. No, that's what they should have done. What they decided to do was market it in a collaborative co-op push with Epic Games to go to their private island and look at it in 3D. The problem is, the pictures are extremely low res. If you haven't played Fortnite before, and I'm assuming most of my audience hasn't, there's obviously a stigma that goes along with it, that it's only played by 12-year-old boys that have squeaker voices. And it's one of those things where if you want to take a look around the card, you know, it's basically your glider. When you jump out of the bus, it's your glider, and you look at it as you're going down. The problem is the photos I've seen of it so far, it's extremely low res. And so Phil and I got to talking about this. Why would they hitch on to Fortnite? I talked about this on Twitter, and a lot of people lost their stuff. Rightfully so, because I was very critical of this campaign, and I'm well within my right to be critical of it. I'm a consumer as well as you guys, whether I get the card for free or not. I still am a consumer. It was like, look, if I'm not playing the game Fortnite, I'm not going to go into Fortnite to take a look at it. I want to see what I can online. And there's this real conscious push to get people into the game. And then we started realizing Epic Games is in this epic battle with Apple right now about their game launcher being removed from the Apple Store because of stupid moves that Epic made about trying to circumvent certain purchase requirements and stuff with the way the Apple Store works. Epic is as much in the wrong as Apple is, but Apple's shown very unfair practices as well, so both of them suck. But Epic also reported that something like 60% of their accounts went inactive as soon as Apple removed the updates and such from the Apple Store, meaning if you don't have the latest game version, you can't play online. Therefore, Epic saw this huge reduction in player base. Now, I've seen some really ignorant comments saying Fortnite is the most popular PC game that's ever been made. Absolutely false. Minecraft is the most popular PC game that's ever been made. But the problem is only about 110 million accounts are created on PC, and that's not active accounts. That's any account that's been created at any time. So it dawned on us that this is actually probably Epic Games' push to try and get as many people to go in and make accounts as fast as they can to look like they have a bigger PC player base when it comes to seeing this massive decline in accounts and making their shareholders happy, seeing, look at this huge rise in PC. We lost Apple, but that's fine. Look at all the gamers we picked up in PC. I don't know if there's any sort of an incentive for AMD to do this, but that's our little tinfoil hat theory, and I'm gonna put that one to rest because I could see that as being beneficial as to why they did it. Obviously, AMD is gonna come out with more information closer to the launch a month and a half from now, and that's what really kind of sucks about it, is you still have to wait a month and a half to get all the GUI details, but you're obviously not gonna get any of that in these pictures and stuff. So what I decided I'm gonna do is I was anonymously approached a couple weeks ago, actually, and was being fed photos of this as it was coming out, or being prepared. And I decided, for those of my audience members that don't want to go to Fortnite to take a look at this, and they don't want to look at the screenshots that have been taken of an extremely low-res, ugly model, I will share with you today those photos and renders that I have. And I'm gonna share with you something AMD hasn't shown you yet. So again, these are not from AMD, and I didn't even think they were legit, quite honestly, until AMD came out with this render photo, and I went, okay, it's correct, the source is legit, and we're gonna go ahead and share that with you now. So here's the render that you guys have seen. You might hear some crashing noises outside. Someone's got a forklift or a pallet jack out there. Can't do anything about that. Anyway, moving on. This is one you already saw. Here's what you didn't see. This was one of the first renders that I was sent. There it is. This is essentially the same thing. Now this, again, is a 3D render, but it all looks pretty legit. You can see you've got the same 3 fans, you've got the same Radeon logo, you've got the same trim. But if you take a look closely, you can see here that the silver part looks more gray. You can't tell if the fan trim on here is shiny, polished or not. You can see you got the same 2 8 pins on there. So what really disappointed me when they came out with the official photo is this red trim. Now look, I don't care if this is an NVIDIA card, an EVGA card, an AMD card, a Sapphire card. I will always complain about a card that has a big giant red accent on it, or a blue accent, or orange, or whatever. I am purely of the base camp, or I'm purely of the camp that's like, let me choose my own colors through lighting. Stop putting accent trim on your cards. And to see Radeon do this, really to me is just, it took this design, which looks great to me, and then they just gaudied it up with that one red trim. Well, Jay, you could just paint it. Do you really want to take your potential $500-600 graphics card here and try and paint that trim? No way, look, it's recessed in there. You can see right here, it's recessed. It's gonna be very difficult to try and get in there. You're not gonna disassemble this card without damaging it to try and paint that. And why should you have to paint it to get rid of it? It's awful to me. So this would have been a much more desired design right here. But if you also notice here, if you look, you can't tell. You can tell that these edges of the fan right here are like chamfered and polished, very Apple-esque, if you will. But what you can't really tell with the render is that looks shiny. At first I couldn't tell if this was white right here, but as you can see now, that's just representative of basically being chrome or polished. But what I also have here, and this one I hope it doesn't get me in trouble. If it does, it does, but at least I want to give you guys some real information here, something concrete, not a sprinkling of a rendering that you have to go into Fortnite to look at even lower res version. This is the picture of the actual card. As you can see, the red trim is even worse in real life. And then the silver and shiny, to me that's terrible. I feel like if it looked like the render I just showed you, which is this sort of a darker gray and black without the red, look at that. You see how sleek that looks? And the Radeon's only showing red because it's actually probably a red LED. Because if you look at the actual card, you can see right here, it's not red. It's very obvious this is gonna be backlit. But if you take a look here at the actual render, or the rendering itself, this is so sleek. This has a very nice spaceship feel to it, if you will. I get that they're trying to move away from this. This is like a Volvo. Turbo brick, without the turbo. It's just the brick. And so this looks terrible. I mean, you've even got blue, green, and yellow wires showing down in there on the fan. It's awful. This is just awful. This render is desired, for sure. That just looks so much better than this. And then they were like, well, it's not Radeon enough. Let's add some red, because Radeon red. I don't know if anyone talks like that. They're in Austin, Texas, so I assume, this card needs more Tarnation red. Tarnation red. I don't know. The red is ridiculous, but that's personally just me. You can see at least on this prototype. I'm assuming this is a prototype. You can see here too that the little shield on the front, this guy right here, this is a nice, pretty black one. That's the basic chrome one like you tend to see on other cards. But it's nice to see that the fin array does at least still go from card to, or end to end. Who knows what the power draw on this is gonna be? Again, we've got no info on that. Some of these fins look bent. That's why I believe this is a prototype, because you can see right here, these fins are kind of curved. Looks like it's been handled a bunch. It's not that clean. Very, very obvious that this is a prototype. But if you compare that to their rendering, that's clearly the card. What's kind of interesting too is like the rendering here makes this look like it's much more curvy, if you will. But the actual card, at least from this angle, looks much more square. But there's something else about this card that sort of disappointed me. And that is just, I was like, why does this look familiar to me? I started looking around at other cards and I'm like, this just doesn't, something about this is familiar and I couldn't quite put my hands on it. Until I picked up the 2080 Ti Founders Edition. It just looks too much like it's derivative of this. And I think the last thing we need to see right now is any sort of a copycat type of move. I think we just need AMD to stand on its own 2 feet, come up with its own designs, because you know what this reminds me of? This reminds me of Apple going, how do we do a front-facing sensor with a edge-to-edge screen? Let's just put a notch in it. And then everyone's like, notches are dumb, we hate the notch. I don't like the notch. The notch is awful. And it's even more obvious on white phones. But damn, what did every other phone manufacturer do? They copied the notch. They copied the feature even Apple fanboys hated. And I feel like that's what we kind of got right here. And you know what? Again, at the end of the day, if you're that guy that's like, Jay, you're overreacting. It's a cooler. Who cares? Almost everybody. Remember, I said you're the minority, and I envy you because you're able to just like let that superficial stuff go. But this is your brand. In fact, it even goes to like the Founders Edition thing. You've got the FE for Founders Edition, and then AMD's like, well, we've got an FE too. It's the Frontier, Tarnation, Austin, Texas. Actually, no, in Austin, Texas, it's very not cowboy, but still, it's all making sense now. There's something else that AMD didn't show you that I'm gonna show you. And I said on Twitter that I called this card by name, the 6900 XT, because that's what it was called by name in the emails that I received. But, it's also important to say this once again, my source that sent me these photos is not affiliated with AMD or any AIB. It's truly a follower of mine that was like, hey, through a friend of a friend of a friend of a friend, twice removed's cousin, I received these photos. Thought you might think they're cool. So I have no idea where these came from, but I can tell you, oh, you can see a backplate back there on the ground. I just realized, look at that. Backplate. So I'm really curious as to what the backplate's gonna look like. We still have not seen the back of any of these cards. But I called it the 6900 XT because I'm like, no, there's definitely a 6900 XT in a lesser model. And someone was like, well, how do you know that? And I'm like, watch my video coming out. Check this out. Boom. Tough actin' Tenactin right there. There's an uglier card than the one I just showed you. Yeah, I mean, it's basically a 2-fan version. It's clearly shorter. It's still dual 8-pin. But look at the R on this thing. It's like, man, on this one, they're like, if only we had room to put an R in the middle. Well, there it is. There's your big R. So anyway, I assume this is going to probably be a 6700 XT. It's curious, though, that it has a shorter PCB, less fans, but still dual 8-pin power. And usually the power plugs are indicative of the power draw of a card because of the PCI Express power spec when it comes to the plugs and the 75 watts additional you can pull through the motherboard. A lot of people will overbuild the PCIe power delivery, that way it doesn't draw so much through the motherboard though, meaning you don't need then supplementary motherboard power plugged in if you're using a lot of PCI Express devices. So I have no idea what this card is going to be, but it definitely looks derivative of this guy because of the fact that, well, the power plugs are a little farther forward, but again. But I'm assuming that white is going to be like also a bright silver versus the other render we took a look at a moment ago, which is, I can't scroll to it now, but I wanted to show you this guy. I have no idea what this card is. I expect this to probably be some sort of an integration with Roblox. I'm not really entirely sure. I would assume that that might be the next logical game that they want to tease when it comes to the cards. Yeah, I know, Jay's just, I know. Anyway, I wanted to show you guys something more than a Fortnite render, and here it is. Don't know if these are gonna get me in trouble or blacklisted, but I felt like my audience deserved to see more and didn't have to go to Fortnite to see it. So go ahead and leave all your angry comments down below. Operators are standing by to delete them.
Do we have enough budget to pay for that?
Nor do we even delete them, but hey.